Good afternoon. I am Mark Levine, and I'm proud to represent the communities of Marin and Southern Sonoma counties. Thank you for joining us. Today, we will be discussing an important topic that is at the top of the minds of many, the drought. First, I'd like to share with you a little about my office's use of virtual town halls. This is our 7th virtual town hall. These town halls have reached thousands on our website, YouTube page, and Facebook Live. Of all the pandemic experiences we've had, we've realized that technology provides great access to programming, information, and real-time interaction. Notably, this also means that during a very challenging period for public health, it is a very safe means to engage and collaborate while keeping members of the public and my hardworking staff both physically and mentally safe and healthy. We are always available to serve you, and I'd like to personally express my gratitude to my staff who have stepped up in extraordinary ways to help people in great need during the pandemic, particularly as emergency staff to the Employment Development Department, which was inundated with calls and applications over the past 14 months. We see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we are still in the midst of a devastating disease. Thank you for your understanding of how we will respect this threat to health and the needs of our constituents. You are our #1 priority. California is now in the 2nd consecutive year of drought. Along with exceptionally dry conditions over the last decade, there's no doubt that we are experiencing the devastating effects of climate change on the West Coast. Many of Northern California's reservoirs are only about half full due to 2 dry winters. This is making a significant impact on local water supplies. Some local jurisdictions have declared water emergencies, while others have asked for severe conservation measures. Experts have even compared these conditions to the 1976-1977 drought, which was the worst drought in California history. The legislature is looking to appropriate approximately $3.7 billion to address the emerging drought. Another $1 billion will also be included in the state budget for various wildfire prevention and response efforts, an increase of $292 million above Governor Newsom's request in his proposed May revise. But the state will also need the assistance and collaboration of federal and local partners in order to preserve adequate water supply for the health and safety of all Californians. I am now joined by the general managers of Sonoma Water, Grant Davis, and the Marin Municipal Water District, Ben Horenstein, who can talk more about what's happening in our community. Later, I will also have local experts from the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resource Programs UC Cooperative Extension in Sonoma and Marin counties to talk about what households can do to lessen their water impact outside of their homes. Then we'll bring it back to all of our panelists for some Q&A. If you'd like to submit a question, please send an email to assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. We have staff monitoring that email account as we go through the program. If you are joining us on Facebook or YouTube, you can also ask the question in the comments section. Welcome, Grant and Ben. Thank you for your patience. Briefly, can you talk a little bit about your agencies and what they're doing to lessen the impact of the drought in Sonoma and in Marin? Ben, do you mind starting us off?
Sure, and thank you for the invitation to participate here today. We are in, as you noted, a historic drought. This is a natural disaster we're finding ourselves in. Our water supply at Marin Municipal, serving central and southern parts of Marin, has not been lower this time of year except once in the late 70s in our 100-year history. And we're just entering the summer where we get a higher demand on our system, and we're going to see our supplies be depleted even further. What we're doing is focusing first and foremost on conservation. You know, every bit of water we save today is water that will be here if the coming winter, and that's a big question no one has an answer to, is comparable to the past year or two in terms of the lack of normal precipitation. Since the 70s, we developed a recycled water program. We added to our storage. We now a partner with Sonoma County Grants Agency Conservation Program. Our board recently significantly enhanced our conservation program in terms of incentives. So just one example, but there's many on our website you'd be able to access. Our turf replacement rebate program went from $1 to $3 an acre foot that we give the residents if they're willing to replace their lawns with drought tolerant landscaping. And that's a similar incentive that, for example, Las Vegas has done to really move us out of our, it's better to say, I suppose, move us into landscaping that fits better with the nature of the weather patterns that we have. We're also, while we're hoping for a wet winter, we aren't planning on it. And we are looking at emergency drought projects, looking at the potential for water transfers, emergency desal, very complex and costly projects that could have certainly a short-term benefit and possibly a long-term benefit. But first and foremost, really, we're asking our communities, our ratepayers, our customers to conserve every way they can. And our website has so many tips and programs and incentives.
Thanks, Ben. Grant, how bad is it up there?
Well, it's pretty bad, not unlike what Ben just shared from Marin's reservoirs. By the way, thank you for having me at Summit Men. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues. I'm anxious to hear what the cooperative extension folks have to say about what individuals can do, because the message I want to get out is that the entire Russian River watershed, which provides a good supply of our water to 600,000 customers, has never been in such shape at this time of year. So we're going to have to work together up and down the watershed, and your task force today and your commentary is going to help show how others can do that. Sonoma Water manages two reservoirs, actually. One's Lake Mendocino, which is up in Mendocino County, and that's primarily annual precip. It has no carryover storage, and that is severely challenged. You mentioned the average of most reservoirs this time of year. That is currently at about 39.3%. That is 34,000 acre feet of water. And we are doing our best to make sure that we keep that at no less than 20,000 acre feet going into the coming year, assuming we can make it through the summer. So that is as dry as I've ever seen it. And it's a real worry, and it's going to require extraordinary conservation and reductions in diversions. We supply water, 85% of the water also comes from Lake Sonoma, which has got about 3 times the amount of water on a typical year. And interestingly enough, for your folks, your constituents, it'd be good to know that that was the response primarily to the drought of record you talked about in 1976-77, was a collective will with Marin and Sonoma to go ahead and construct Lake Sonoma. Went online, started filling in 1983. And that's down around 56% right now. And that's we're looking at 138,000 acre feet and the need to make sure we don't get close to 100,000. So that's the slope that we're looking at, that we're going to need to conserve. And as I said, if we get to that 100,000 acre feet by the end of this year, then we're looking at mandatory 30% cutbacks across the way, and that will affect folks throughout the watershed. We deliver about 85% of North Marin's water supply, and then they've got other local supplies, and about 25% down to Ben's agency at Marin Municipal Water District. So we work together regularly. I really sympathize with what Ben's board's having to do. It's not unlike our own board. We're looking for any alternatives we can to bring on new supplies of water and to stretch existing supplies further.
Well, thank you, Grant. And I do want to emphasize the incredibly strong partnership between Sonoma County Water Agency and Marin Water Agencies. We are our own watershed. We're not on the State Water Project. We're not involved with any federal water projects. We really need to rely upon our own planning and watersheds. And on a typical year, it's marvelous how our watersheds collect water and the planning that has gone into placing those reservoirs. But climate change is challenging all of that planning. And what we've seen this year is that we're at levels that we typically see in year 3 of a drought, not in year 2. And so you can't say that we should have seen this coming and that it snuck up on us. This is a different type of animal in this year 2 of the drought. So I really appreciate that. Ben, you mentioned some solutions, whether it's desalination or bringing in water from another water agency. And people talk about a pipeline across Richmond Bridge, which we had done many decades ago. These, how quickly can either of those two projects get going so that there is relief for people who need water if water drops to the levels that Grant is describing in his two reservoirs, or we continue to see precipitous, very quick decline in ours?
Yeah, so we currently have less than a year of water supply, and that's a perilous position for a water agency to be in, and we're coming into the summer months, and if we have a dry fall, we're really looking at I think the likelihood of these projects. How long they take, it's a good question, and we're in the middle of planning efforts on both of them, looking at them. I feel confident that we'd be able to get the support of many players. Each one of them has different elements that need approval and support in different ways, but everyone understands this natural disaster drought we're in. And I would suspect sometime in December, January will be the time where we'll have a feel. Is this going to be a normal precipitation year, or are we going to need to move forward with these very complicated, costly projects? And if we do make the decision to move forward, I'm confident we'll have everything in place that we'll be able to get these projects online. I think, you know, similar to the 70s, we'll be down there, we'll be low. In the 70s, I think we were around maybe 10 or 15,000 acre feet compared to our storage of 80,000 acre feet. So very low, but once you put the plumbing in and you have the agreements in place, the water will flow. So, and then desal has its own complications.
Is it more time consuming to negotiate the agreements, or more time consuming to lay pipe along the bridge?
Yeah.
Not that they can't happen concurrently.
And we are, you know, we aren't going to put a pipe on the bridge if that's the direction we would go until we had an agreement in place. What people say is there's always water out there. It's just how much do you want to pay for it? With this drought, there's some uncertainty to that. So we're working in parallel with Caltrans on the structural analysis for the pipe on the bridge. We're working with East Bay Mud in terms of helping convey the water. And we're out there looking for potential seller of water. And all of those have to come together with plans and approvals and all the stuff. So we're ready to go if, and it's not likely it happens, but it's likely enough that we do need to have a plan in place. Longer term, and Grant may talk about that, we're really excited to partner with his agency on groundwater storage. And that's more of a regional effort that is kind of a natural building on the partnership we have.
Well, I think that's a really positive segue to the next topic, but I did want to clarify for you. A lot of people are interested in using the third lane on both the top and the bottom for traffic. Would a pipe necessitate taking up a lane, or are there other engineering solutions that would not remove a lane of traffic?
Yeah, there are other engineering solutions, and just from a practical matter, taking up a lane would almost by definition be a temporary routing for pipe, similar to what we did in the 70s. And by doing temporary, the pipe in the 70s is not there for when we'd like to use it now. So I think both from the impact to the users of those lanes, and as much or more so, at least from my view, of spending that sort of money and having a permanent structure in place for the next route to help us out and potentially the region does make more sense. So we are looking at with Caltrans below the upper deck and below the lower deck as the ideal locations where this project to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on to groundwater storage, the North Bay has amazing watersheds. They're extraordinarily beautiful and it has been where we've had great rainfall. But one area where Sonoma County has done amazing work as well is in planning for sustainable groundwater management. And I think a lot of the communities in Sonoma deserve a lot of credit for all of the planning that has gone into that work. And when we talk about building reservoirs, there are some natural places to store water. Grant, you want to fill us in on that?
Well, yeah, and it reminds me, you were an assignment at the time when we passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and that's in making its way forward. That's 2014, circa now we're 2021, and by the end of this year, beginning of January 2022, those groundwater management plans need to be in place. And then a period of time goes into execution. So for the North Bay, there's in our area, we've got the Sonoma Groundwater Management Planning Agency. There's also one in Petaluma, and then up in the Santa Rosa Plain. And so there's 3 that are currently medium high priority that are working their way through. And I personally think that our next generation of water supply is going to be groundwater. That will be where the banks occur, and the mechanics ought to go there. In fact, I'm anxious to talk to Ben to look at the possibility of, as we are looking to bring on a groundwater recharge well up in the Santa Rosa Plain as part of phase 2 of this drought. We've got a well on Todd Road that's currently going to be brought back into production in a time of drought. Currently, we're planning on getting that up and running by August. Interestingly enough, it's going to require securing quite a bit of pipeline. We've had to go out on the Cal-Warren system because COVID has reduced supplies, certainly around this area, to find 36-inch pipe to make this project possible. But I'm confident we're going to find it by working with our colleagues. And groundwater management is going to be our future. I'm pleased that you're recognizing that and have supported us all along in that. Marin, interestingly enough, does not have a bunch of groundwater basins to be working on. So it's more likely that Marin Municipal, North Marin, and Sonoma Water would come together to find a way to park water when it's available in those winter months when we get the ARs, put it into the ground and store it there. So you'll have it available in times like this when we're experiencing severe drought. You pull it back out. So it's another way of bringing on facilities online that are not your traditional surface water storage.
Do you think this could be also an opportunity for investment in recycled water storage?
I absolutely do. Example in Sonoma is the one where I know you've been very interested. The last drought, you were looking at all kinds of recycled water usage for livestock and other forage. I think in Sonoma Valley, for example, we've got saltwater intrusion that's working its way up into San Pablo Bay, right below our water treatment plant. And the idea of using reclaimed water as a barrier so you could then use other water for potable supplies. So I believe in subscribing to treating water to what the end use is. And if you're going to use it for keeping saltwater intrusion from entering up into the North Bay, you don't have to treat it as much. So yeah, I think it's going to be all kinds of opportunities for reclaimed water in the North Bay.
You've got a great memory, Grant, for what's nearly decades old legislation of mine. So I appreciate that quite a bit. We're going to be talking with Mimi Enright and Stephen Swain from UC Cooperative Extension about outside the house. You both have programs for helping people with inside the help conservation, and you're going to be running some of those programs, I think this Saturday, on June 12th, which
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. You want to talk about some of the different kits that you're going to be offering?
Ben, do you want to launch in? Well,
yeah, go ahead, Grant. Sure.
Well, I would just say what we're looking at, I'm pleased that it's going to be in 3 different locations. So I want Ben to talk about the Marin locations, but it's actually in Marin County, Sonoma County, and Mendocino County.
That's right.
It's called the Drought Drop By. It's 9-to-1 in all of these locations. But what you're looking at is getting buckets out there that can catch water for reuse in the shower. You're getting low flow shower heads, shower timers, faucet aerators, toilet dye tests, and then self-closing garden hoses, my own personal favorite, that shut off while you're watering. So Ben, you might want to go into locations down in the Marin area.
Yeah, those are available on our website. I would add to what we're giving out is really a small sampling of what's available in terms of resources to our customers in terms of the drought. We have gray water kits. We have incentives for rain barrel storage. Now we don't limit the size. We have an incentive, and some people are going to 5,000 gallons like you see in Australia and other places, and that's a great move. And that we're very focused on turf incentive replacement, as I noted. So there's a suite. We're going to be adding hot water systems to save. There's some really cool designs out there that save the water as you turn it on and wait for the hot water to reach the far reach of your home in the bathroom. And the message in conservation, and for me, this is really such an important understanding, is individually, and we all know it, but it's worth just reminding ourselves, it feels like it's such a small amount of water that's being saved. And the answer is, you're right. But collectively, the difference it makes is all the difference. So it really is going to take us, as Mark and Grant have said, to work together to really save the water that we have today, given the uncertainty for this coming year.
Yeah, a lot of it's psychological, particularly that 5-minute shower timer, where it's not, uh-oh, the 5 minutes are over, I need to stop. It's, how do I beat this?
Right.
And be finished before it ever tells me it's been 5 minutes. And that collective difference is extraordinarily powerful. Particularly as, sometimes we don't know. It's hard for us to measure how much water we're using. That's a very simple way for us to know if we've let a little bit too much water go down the drain, as they say. All right, so you guys are both going to stick around, but before you go, in Sonoma, there are 10 locations for that pickup. It's from 9 to 1 p.m. curbside pickup. So you don't need to go in anywhere. It's very COVID safe. So of course, only go if you're feeling well. So again, 10 spots, very easy to find in Marin County, from Mill Valley to Novato, 4 different spots. There's one in San Rafael and Mill Valley, and then in Mendocino, in Redwood Valley and Ukiah. So a lot of locations, and we can, hopefully we will take
on the website, it's savingwaterpartnership.org, and you'll find those under drop by.
Thank you, Grant. savingwaterpartnership.org. So, all right, you guys will stick around, and we'll have a little, discussion as we learn about more. So I want to say thank you to Ben and Grant. And if you've got questions that you want us to ask of Ben and Grant, or Grant, please send us an email or tag it into either Facebook Live comments. You can email it to us at assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov, and we will try to get that in there. And now I'd like to invite everyone to our second panel, and for Mimi Enright and Stephen Swain to join us. So go ahead and turn on your camera so we can see you. And here with us are now Mimi Enright, a UC Master Gardener and Program Manager for the UC Master Gardeners Program in Sonoma County, which is an amazing program, as well as Stephen Swain, an Environmental Horticulture Advisor at the UC Cooperative Extension in Marin County. And we are so grateful for the partnership with UC Cooperative Extension. It is such a wonderful addition to the community that many of us are engaged in or aware of, and helps us. So thank you again for joining me and all of us this afternoon. Mimi, could you please tell us about the Master Gardeners Program, because you'll do a better job than I can.
Sure, happy to. And appreciate the opportunity. I think there's a lot of people who are not familiar with Master Gardener programs and may not know about it as a resource in their community. So appreciate that opportunity. So Master Gardeners are trained and certified University of California volunteers whose mission is to extend the research and education of the University of California to their community. We provide science-based information to home gardeners. And Stephen represents a program in Marin County, and I am, as you mentioned, the program coordinator for the Sonoma County Master Gardener program. Master gardeners go through an extensive training program, typically 4 months long, once a week, all day training in plant science on topics like composting and botany, and any topic related to plant science, composting, water use and irrigation in the landscape environment. So a very extensive program. We answer gardening questions, and we take a proactive role in extending sustainable landscaping education to our community. So for example, in both Marin and Sonoma counties, we both have extensive websites with deep resources on a variety of topics. And in particular, we developed a real deep knowledge base during the last drought in 2014. So lots of great resources on the Sonoma Master Gardener webpage on Waterwise Gardening. And then of course, since 2017, we've been deeply engaged in helping to educate our community on Firewise landscaping and defensible space. I also wanted to mention briefly that here in Sonoma County, we're very proud of a partnership that we've had with Sonoma Water since 2013 on a program called Garden Sense, where a Sonoma County resident can request a home visit by a pair of Master Gardener Garden Sense consultants. They get extra advanced training on water conservation practices, and we come out and consult on lawn removal, irrigation conversion from spray to drip, and low water use plant suggestions for replacing your lawn. So particularly timely always in our summer dry Mediterranean climate, but even more so during a drought.
Yeah, we certainly can see it just driving along 101, how the hills have gotten dry so quickly. And thanks for echoing some of the programs that our water agencies help to underwrite, which is transitions from a grass turf to something else. Stephen, you've got a lot of technical know-how about that. How can property owners transition from their green grass to low water landscaping? And, is that as easy as it seems? Is it more challenging? How do we get to, such a thing as a no water yard?
That's a good question. It can be a little more challenging than it seems, depending upon what your original grass was and a host of other factors, like, what kind of soil are you on and how much water do you just get naturally there. Some places in the Santa Rosa Plateau get some amount of water that grasses can tap into. If you can plant a deep-rooted grass, even if you wanted to replace a lawn with some other grass, like a native grass, it'd go dry during the summer typically, but it wouldn't require much in the way of irrigation. Those are not always they're not what people typically think of as lawns, though, so that may not be what they wanted to do. But you could do something like sheet mulching and simply you're looking at chips for a few months out of the year, typically a summer. But then after everything breaks down, you can put things on. So it's more a question of sort of time versus effort. If you're willing to go slow and take a year to get this done, it can be a fairly painless and not terribly expensive process. If you need results tomorrow, it's going to get, you're going to be bringing in layers of turf and those kinds of things. So does that help?
We'll know as people send us some questions asking for clarification. But would most people be able to go to a garden center and get advice or help there, or specific websites where people can get ideas for what that is so that they can do this, maybe a DIY project or seeking assistance? Where would they go for that? More detail.
Well, there are a number of different websites. Both Marin and Sonoma have fantastic websites that'll get you started on some of this. As Mimi mentioned, they have the Garden Sense program. We have the Garden Walks program, where we actually go out to your house, same basic idea, slightly different emphasis. The Garden Walks program, we do talk about your specific landscape needs. We look for leaks and those kinds of things. We talk about hydrozoning, putting plants with similar water needs. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't have some high water use plants. Pretty much all fruits and vegetables are, for instance. But we could start you there. Yes, you can go to your local nurseries. There are, you can go talk to a number of different places that sell turf, and they can get you started. They have on low water use alternatives. If you have to have a lawn, if you don't have to have a lawn, the world's your oyster. You can do all kinds of things with, you know, sages, rock gardens, succulents, native things along those lines, and it you know, it can be as complicated as you make it, like any project, but it doesn't have to be.
And can I add something on just to the end of what Stephen said? So when we started the Garden Sense program with Sonoma Water, our contact there said that one of the biggest problems people have, that they would sign up for a Cash for Grass program, but they wouldn't complete the program because they didn't know what to put in place of the lawn. So that's why we focused our program in the way we did, the Garden Sense program. But to help with that, both the Marin Master Gardener and Sonoma Master Gardener websites have deep wells of content, for lack of a better phrase, of plant information and plant recommendations of great low water use plants for you to select to replace your higher water use lawn. So based on, you know, Master Gardener's experience growing here in Marin or Sonoma counties, recommendations of those plants that we think perform best. So lots of great resources available.
And they're already on the website.
Yeah. Okay. And Mimi, you talked about how you're volunteers, but are any of these services fee-based services at all?
No, it's completely free to any Sonoma County resident, and similar with garden walks in Marin County.
That's great.
All right, that's a fantastic thing to learn.
We do have a limited number of volunteers. I will say we launched a Garden Sense program in late 2013, and then shortly thereafter, the governor pronounced the drought in 2014, and we were inundated with requests. So we were meeting with our Sonoma Water partner today, and I anticipate we're going to see a big uptick in demand. You may have to wait, but be patient. We'll get to you. But please sign up if you're interested in having a consultation.
I have a tree question for you, but I'll save it for later. Something I think that you can both be extraordinarily helpful to people right now is that, yes, we are in year 2 of a drought, but we live in a region that has been hard hit by wildfire for many years. Every year we seem to have the next largest wildfire, and they have deadly consequences for human life and destructive consequences for our homes. And we have a lot that we can do to protect our lives and our homes, our families, and the places where we live from wildfire. Mimi, can you start talking to us a little bit about how we can prepare our homes and make them less susceptible to fires? Yeah,
and actually I've been working very, very closely with Stephen for the last 3 years on exactly that topic as we've looked to really deepen our knowledge and create educational content for our community to help us be better prepared as we move forward. So the most important thing to do, the first step for anyone is to harden your home. So there's lots of great resources. We've got lots of great resources on our webpage. I'm sure Marin does as well. There's some great UC in our publications on the specific steps you need to do to harden your home. And then once you've hardened your home, you then move out and you look at that 100-foot defensible space zone around your structures. The next step after hardening your home is starting on that first zone, the 0 to 5 foot zone in the perimeter around your structures, which is called the Ember Defense Zone. And there is scientific research that supports making that a no organics zone, which is a really hard concept for people to wrap their heads around. Folks are traditionally used to having foundation shrubs up against the house, but embers are the largest cause of structure ignition. And if you have a woody shrub underneath a window in that 0 to 5 foot perimeter of your home, an ember can land in that woody shrub, ignite the shrub, and then break the window and bring the fire into your home. So it's a tough concept for people to wrap their heads around. We're really trying to develop more resources. We just finished filming a video. Marin's done a great video on this topic, the Marin Master Gardeners, to try to help people with visuals of, new ideas of what that zone can look like, perhaps with stepping stones or gravel instead of woody plants and mulch. And then you move out from there into your successive defensible space zones of 5 to 30 feet and 30 to 100 feet. So Stephen, I don't know what would you
Yeah,
want
I want to ask Stephen. So Stephen, I think I have a problem that a lot of people in the Marin watershed have. Almost annually, I've got to do something about French broom. It's almost like I can never eradicate that from my backyard. What are some unique circumstances that we're facing that, you know, in some timely ways to fix it, other than just going back out and making sure we're monitoring that, so that every fire season we're able to you know, protect not just our home. I think what's really important here is we not only protect our home, but we protect our neighbors' homes too. Stephen?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a community problem. So fire defense is listen to your fire departments, cleaning your gutters. If you've got a broom infestation, my heart goes out to you, Mark, because you got a 30-year seed bank going there. And so the most important thing to do is to pull those little broom plants before they set flower. And that can be challenging if you've got a lot of seeds in the soil. So maintaining weeds and keeping up on your landscaping is important, but I think if you haven't done your home hardening and you're out there pulling weeds, you're missing the boat. Like Mimi said, you really need to start with hardening the home and concentrating on that close to the house area. Then you want to go out and look at the design of your landscape. Make sure you've got horizontal and vertical separation so you don't have fuels that can creep along the ground, get up into a bush that's underneath a tree, and then go right up into the tree. And all of a sudden you've got this great big torch. The other thing you need to do, I know this is going to be challenging, is, you know, the plants need to be in fairly good state. One of the most important things about plant flammability is their access to water. I'm not suggesting everybody go out and drench their plants, but if you start with low water use plants, they'll be able to stay hydrated on not very much water. High water use plants are gonna require a lot to keep them healthy and safe.
That's really helpful. Thanks for that. You know, I think now let's welcome Grant and Ben back as we ask some questions that we've received from constituents. So thank you, Stephen and Mimi. Grateful to have you both in our community. I received a couple of live questions, and I think this will be, to have everyone on this panel now is going to be really helpful, because we have a question about what is the right amount of water that someone should be using every day or per day. And, you know, we know that there's, you know, size of your family changes how much water you use. Obviously, landscaping. We've heard about the conservation measures that we're being asked to do about limiting some of our landscaping and limiting numbers of days. Let's start with, you know, Ben, do you want to take a shot at this, and then we'll move to the landscaping professionals as well?
Yeah, I'd say 30 gallons a day, and this is in context of the severe drought that we're in, is a number to shoot for. And
per person, is that right? Per person?
Yes, thank you for the clarification. 30 gallons a day per person. And this is really starting to drive down into, you know, the old things we've heard. If it's yellow, let it mellow, put a bucket under the shower while you're waiting for hot water, do the same in the sink. And you can really dry, you know, full loads for dishwashers, and you know, then for us outside irrigation, it's to just go into survival mode for your special plants, and ideally let your lawn go. Buy into the notion that you don't need that big front yard, and you can put in drought tolerant landscaping, and we're going to help. But 30 gallons and below, you're really starting to be a super saver. And what that number is approaching is the amount of water that's used per person in other areas that have a similar climate. What we just have not aligned yet are practices with our climate. And that's really the direction I believe you're hearing today of how to do that.
All right, well, let's look at our yards. Does that 30 gallons per person per day include our landscaping water that you average out to those people? Or do yards also factor into some number?
Yeah, I mean, yards would be additive. That's really a low number, 30 gallons per day, thinking about really your primary health and safety needs, drinking it, cooking with it, and washing. And given the natural disaster we're in, that's a mindset we're going to need to move to. In terms of outdoor, if you have that, orange tree that's been there forever and you really want to hang on to that, understandable, and periodic, infrequent hand irrigation, trickling it and letting it go down to the roots. You do that once every few weeks, it's going to survive. I'm not an expert.
Okay, we'll ask Stephen. Stephen, tell us, how do you keep that orange tree alive, and what water does it really take?
The amount of water it takes is going to depend on so many different factors. I can't give you a number. What I can say is what you need to do if you want to figure this out, go out with a shovel, stick your hand down in the soil about 10 inches, somewhere around there. Maybe 6 for an orange tree. They tend to be a little more shallow rooted than some of the other trees out there. And you want to feel, and if the soil feels even a little bit damp, it's okay. It's when it's bone dry, when you can pull your fingers up and it's dust there, then you need to water again. And so what I would suggest, you can do it 1,000 different ways. Ben gave some good ideas. You could put a soaker hose on a timer and figure out how long it takes to get water down about 6 inches and just run it for that much time and cover the soaker hose with a layer of mulch so that you're not losing a bunch of that water. And then water early in the morning. I do this. I have a little orchard in my back, and we do just what I'm saying, watering at 6 a.m. before I go for my run. I turn it on for a few minutes, go for my run. By the time I'm back, it's done. I can just shut everything off.
And is there a reason to go for the morning rather than the evening?
Yeah, a lot of people here can, I'm not the only one who can answer that one.
Okay, Mimi, do you want to take that one?
It just reduces the amount of water loss from evaporation. So it's just the most efficient time to
So the land
water,
the earth is cooler by morning.
To reduce water loss. And, I wanted to add, I think a lot of people don't know how much to irrigate their landscapes. And I strongly believe that a lot of people over irrigate their landscapes. And I wanted to point out that there's a really wonderful tool on the City of Santa Rosa website called Water Smart Yard that actually, based on weather stations in the Santa Rosa region, does all the complex behind the scenes calculations based on reference evapotranspiration, all these different factors, and calculates how much people should be irrigating their lawns and or lower moderate water use planted areas. And I was really excited we've recommended that site for years because it's been the only resource we've had available. And have told people, try. So I live in Cloverdale, so we kind of extrapolate that it's a little hotter, and I would add a few more minutes. But I was very excited to hear from our partner at Sonoma Water this morning that they're developing that through the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership for all of the municipalities and regions in Sonoma County, and that hopefully will be launched this summer. So it just gives people more information to more accurately understand what they should be doing to optimally maintain their landscape. And then as we have more severe, requirements on restrictions, that we can dial back from there. But it gives you a starting point of really understanding what the plants need to be healthy.
Hey, thanks, Mimi and Stephen. Sure, Ben.
I was just going to note that for those in Marin, we do have a similar calculator on our website that folks will be able to access, and we are trying to tailor it and reduce what it would normally in a normal year show for the drought conditions we're in. But for me, there's also just a visual. If you have a lush lawn right now, I don't know that's the right message to be sending to your kids, to your neighbors, and to yourself. And, it takes a community, and it takes peer pressure, and it takes having the hard discussions with folks that are not yet engaged in this.
Yeah, I think what's challenging, and Grant, we're not going to let you go off easy. I've got some questions for you. But I think for so many people in our community, that we've got this really strong conservation ethic. And whether it's the last drought, or because we want to do the right thing and model the right behavior. I mean, I don't think my children have ever flushed a toilet in their lives. I always have to tell them to remind them that they remember back in the last drought that we were trying to be careful, and they've just kept up with that, maybe too much. So what do we say to people who have always just conserved by nature, by their nature, and are now being asked to find other ways to conserve? Are they on the hook? I mean, everyone's on the hook, but is there an understanding that, hey, there are some people that already have pretty low levels, and there's so much that conservation that we can squeeze out of them?
There are people doing one heck of a lot. I would just say brown is the new green. I think that's an old slogan, but let's keep using it. We've got to get those lawns. Don't replace them. Let them go dormant. I'd love to hear the master gardener stuff, because I'm not a master gardener. So one of the answers is bring me into your backyard and I'll kill everything quickly. Just by my lack of gardening ability. We had the new mayor of Windsor is actually Sam Salmon, and Ben was probably at this water contractor meeting, announced that he's down to 10 gallons per day. And that's a little too far, believe me. We've said, Sam, we love you, but you don't have to go to that extreme. But I'm impressed that Ben picked 30 gallons. That if you can get on a campaign like that, we're going to make it through this drought.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Really important. So everybody's got to pull together. Those guys that are leading by example, let's applaud them. Maybe Mark, you'll call them out, and you'll pick the top 10 in your district and single them out for great behavior. It's
like the vaccine lottery, except for water conservation. I don't have all the money that the Governor Newsom has for people who get vaccines, but we can still applaud people who are modeling the right water usage. Grant, I received a question. I wanted to lean on you for your expertise here. I used a couple of terms earlier on about how the North Bay does not rely on the State Water Project, that we have our own local watershed. And I had a question come in with some concern as to, what does that mean really? And why are we on our own? And so for those who are listening and watching, the state borrowed Grant a little while back to help manage our state water system. So Grant, thank you not only to your service for Sonoma and the North Bay, but also for the whole state of California. We benefited greatly from your leadership during some very challenging years. And we're glad to have you back, by the way, in Sonoma.
Glad to be back.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the State Water Project is, and why are we independent, so to speak, beyond being on our own watershed?
Well, it's a really good distinction. In fact, except for a small element, it is true that the community of Napa actually has a Napa North Bay aqueduct that brings a little bit of water in off the Bay Delta system. But largely, if you look at the Golden Gate Bridge north, we are independent. We don't have a source of supply coming in off of the Bay Delta system. We rely primarily on the Russian River system and also Mount Tamalpais watershed. And I firmly believe that we're a microcosm of the state. So the same challenges that California faces with their two main river systems that flow out the Golden Gate on the large scale, we still have a situation where we're importing water, but we rely on our own reservoirs and our own ingenuity and redundancies. So I'm predicting the fact that we can't yet ask for water from the state of California. I personally think we should be able to focus our attention on Marin, Sonoma, Mendocino, and that community, the North Coast, for our water supply needs. We've proven that with innovation, you can deliver new water supply. And Mark, you were part of helping to get the something called forecast-informed reservoir operations up at Lake Mendocino. It's no accident that's where the governor chose to kick off our drought, was the fact that reservoir is so low, but we've also managed to save 11,000 acre feet just by using current precipitation measuring and technology that tell us to predict the weather more accurately. Whether a big system's coming in and going to fall above our reservoir or below our reservoir will dictate whether you let water out or in. So we're working through state and federal channels, but the state's investment in that program is critical. The Assembly and Senate have made 2 years running, and I think they're in the running for the third, to help us get the data and the empirical research that we need to manage our reservoirs better. What I would like to see an outcome of this drought, and perhaps this is where Marin and Sonoma team up again, is bringing FIRO to Lake Sonoma. that would be a Herculean challenge, but one that I know we're up to. And that water then could probably be, depending on who supports that, could be a new source of water. And I'm confident that would be probably a cheaper incremental way of delivering our current and existing needs and make us more resilient in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, Grant. There's, hopefully we can hold on to water if high weather events are not going to pass over us, and we can predict that. And with science and technology, we're able to do that better. And so, again, thanks for kind of leading the way, bringing it to our attention, and helping us to do that and better serve our community. There are concerns about the way that we plan for drought and plan for our water supplies. And that we, as we have drought, we're asking for people to conserve, but then we build some water capacity, and then we end up finding other ways to use that water when the drought ends. Some people are concerned about growth. Other people are concerned about landscaping, and other people have concerns about losing that water conservation ethic. How do we plan for that extra capacity we need so that it can be used in times of drought, but then not lose that extra capacity by building up regular water usage to that? Is there a way to plan for that?
I'll tell you right now, I'd like Ben to answer this, but for Sonoma, we bent the rule curve. We literally told the State Water Board back in 2008 that we're not going after a whole new supply. We were on the hook to go after 26,000 acre feet of new water supply authorized out of the Russian River. Your district, our districts combined said, no, we're going to live within our current 75,000 acre feet limits. And we bent that curve down, and ever since it's been sloping with even higher population, less water supply, and less usage. Conservation has multiple benefits. One of it is just to extend the water supply itself and allow you to be more efficient. So I'm confident that we've actually done something that's truly unique in California, which is put our attempts to go after more water, state the claim that we're going to live within our existing limits and learn how to manage properly. So we are planning on droughts, I assure you, and we're doing more and more coordination. And I think our future, with your help, is going to lead in that direction.
Yeah, I would just say, Mark, that the situation we're in is historic. And I've used the term natural disaster because that's how I'm thinking about it. And it's really not the time, in my view, to look past in history and why it's hard to plan for a, once every 200-year seismic event, even though we try, or flood or hurricanes and elsewhere. They just happen, and we have to come together, work together, which we're doing, and get through it. At the same time, water is life, and water also does support the economy in many ways. So it's a complicated, your question, as you know, is very complex because there's so many important purposes for water. And it's about the water districts working with the cities and the counties in terms of long-term planning. And I think we're getting better at that, and we have to continue those efforts.
Yeah, Ben, I'd like to kind of echo the point that you made about working with jurisdictions within the water districts, particularly as we look at the need for housing in our communities, and that there is pent up need for housing throughout California and the Bay Area, and of course also in the North Bay. And people have a fear that more housing means more water use, while we have what appears to be dwindling water supplies or limited water supplies and not a growth of water storage capacity. How do we work with our communities and the municipalities and the county to suggest this is the type of housing that will keep us within our means as far as increasing that use that could be anticipated? Of course, maybe housing that doesn't have landscaping needs, for example.
Yeah, I do think it's important for everyone to understand that new housing, particularly multi-residential housing, is not a linear increase. And what I mean by that is, hypothetically, if you increase housing stock in terms of number of residents by 10%, the demand on your system is not going to increase anywhere near 10%. And that's due multi-residential, doesn't have the sort of landscaping, there's new water fixtures, there's a host of requirements, state law and our ordinances and everything else that require very low fixtures, including gray water, including tapping into recycled water. So the demand on the system is much lower than the average existing demand. That said, undeniable that every new business or every new home does take some water out of the system, and it really is going to take regional planning, as I noted, better than we've done before, and continue and improve upon that and come up with a long-term strategy that everyone understands and agrees to, and probably bringing the state into that discussion as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. We're coming to the end of our hour, and we've had more to discuss than I really thought that we'd get into this hour, and yet there's still more to talk about. And in particular, because we have two of these important water agencies here, I want to recognize the watershed management that you both do, as well as the ecosystem investments that you have made. And so I want to say thank you to both of you and your staff and the agencies for all of the work to sustain the ecosystem health and invest in it, because we love the natural beauty of the North Bay, and you are responsible for a great deal of it. So again, much gratitude to you. And so thank you, Mimi, Stephen, Ben, and Grant, for joining our virtual town hall this afternoon. I think it was made pretty clear that there's not a drop of water to be wasted, and we need to each do our part, starting today, if you haven't already, to conserve water throughout this drought, and of course, a very dangerous fire season ahead. Today's virtual town hall will be posted on my website, along with links to resources available to residents on my legislative website, which is www.assembly.ca.gov/Levine. That's assembly.ca.gov/Levine, and all of my prior town halls on school resources and education for children, mental health, senior services, food access, wildfire are all available there for you to view and listen to. Please also know that my office continues to be a resource for you all the time, but especially during this time, because we know that there are many needs that are out there during the pandemic, and it's not over yet. So even though things are supposed to be opening up June 15th, I know that for many of you, you will still be dealing with the consequences and repercussions of the past 14 months. So if you have other questions that weren't addressed today, or need assistance with any other issue, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office by calling 707-576-2631 or 415-479-4920. You can also reach me at assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. That's assemblymember.levine@assembly.ca.gov. Or find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at ASM Mark Levine, at ASM Mark Levine. Thank you again to our amazing panelists. Grateful for your service to our community. And thank you everyone for joining. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.